So welcome to the last session of more than halfway through the conference. Thank you for making it here. We don't have a very full room, which is perhaps good because we could open the floor to a lot of discussion. You're tired, I'm tired, so let's try to keep this as informal and as open as possible. This is what we're going to do. The session is titled Innovations in Earth Observation for Carbon Farming MRV Systems. We will try to go through an open discussion and exchange of ideas on EO-based solutions, user needs and gaps. We'll try to see where our questions are. Is science ready to answer the questions we have? Is technology there yet? And sort of what's still missing and what are the next innovative steps required? And we'll start with a couple of keynote presentations, but just before that, I should introduce myself. My name is Neha Hunka. I'm the Forest Application Scientist at the European Space Agency based in Rome. If you don't remember that, if you think you know about Sentinel satellites, think of Sentinels, and then you'll know where I come from. But the presentations today and the panel is very diverse. We have a whole representation of stakeholders. From the policy side, from the farmer side, from carbon standards and carbon verification side. And I think that really leaves a lot of room for discussion. We'll start with a keynote presentation by Tuukka Petäjä. Tuukka is a co-founder of Climate Analytics Finland and a professor at the University of Helsinki. And his presentation is titled Monitoring, Reporting and Verification, Bridging Science and Business. So, off to you, Tuukka.
Oops. I will time myself. Okay, it will take time. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. As said, my name is Tuukka Petäjä. And hopefully my slides will come up. All right, very good. So I'll talk about monitoring, reporting, and verification of carbon removals and kind of bridging the science and business. And actually what we need for the MRV is, and for the efficient carbon market as a whole, we need a layered system which includes the scientific measurements and the research layer. That's where the scientific insights really come from. But the science is not very good to build business only based on science, so it needs a structure. The next structure is the data management and service layer that actually taps into the science, but process it in a way that it is useful for the next step, which is the market layer, and that's where the transactions and market regulations take place. So we need this kind of structure to really go from science to data management and to carbon market. And in my background really is on the science side of things, and the key structures in the scientific measurement and research includes different national activities. For example, in Finland we have infrastructures that combine different ESFRI EU infrastructures on collocated observations. We have ICOS network in Europe providing high quality data on carbon dynamics. We have the satellite observations to cover the spaces between the observation sites. But the key aspect here is that the science needs to move forward and develop, provide data, and bridge the gaps between, for example, the different observation sites. And it really needs to partner with data developers. And we really need coherent EU-wide methods to provide harmonized data, and which is comparable, harmonized, and reliable. And one example of this type of activity is a project called HICET in Finland, holistic infrastructure for knowledge on land use sector carbon sinks and emission tracking. And it includes University of Helsinki, FMI, and Natural Resource Center of Finland, each of them having their own expertise. But combining those together really allows to provide this carbon balance data on a national scale. And this project, it's important to connect to stakeholders and business and decision makers as well. And actually this kind of structure is something that can actually would be valuable to expand from Finland to other countries, because Finland is, if we cannot solve the climate crisis by ourselves, we need harmonized systems across Europe. So union-wide infrastructure to monitor the carbon sinks and land use emissions with accuracy, comparability, and timeliness. So that's what we need. The data management and service layer here is the impact booster. So the science will produce high-quality data, but then we need companies and actors who actually manage this data and develop it for the services. And Climate Analytics Finland is one of the examples that we have. And really key thing in this data management is that it needs to connect to the science and in order to develop auditable services. And this also allows this profitability on a EU scale. And we need to really effectively develop this market mechanism to increase the scale of carbon uptake and carbon monitoring. I'm stuck. Okay, so this is what Climate Analytics Finland is doing. We can start from the step one when we collect data from a single plot of agriculture or forest. We digest this data into our platform, compile data sets available through satellites, soil data, ICOS and other flux data, etc. And then really digest that data into the carbon dynamics within that area. And then do the baseline calculation and repeat that step then with climate action done, and we look at the difference. And this is a way to quantify how much carbon has been taken up, for example, if the forest is fertilized and the growth of the trees is increasing. And this tracks, the system includes also not only observations but modeling the forest dynamics, for example, or agricultural field dynamics. And this way we can really see the additionality of carbon uptake because of the climate actions and verify this uptake with a third party. And maybe we switch presenters here, so I'll bring Sami onto the table, or
Okay, Sami Patra, I'm CEO and founder also in Carbon Analytics, Climate Analytics Finland. This is a bit tight spot, but only a few things. I don't want to take time from the discussion and the let's say interaction with you. All of you are somehow experts on these issues. We see the MRV, as Tuukka mentioned, as impact booster for the market, guaranteeing the credibility of the market, and in a way the data management and service design layer is the innovation platform for different kind of innovations, different kind of services in the future. But what we need is then also let's say the market to work well, and that's then up to, let's say, regulators to regulate, be it Commission in European Union, be it the national authorities and registries, like we have heard during this conference. But then we have to engage the buyers and sellers, and we will hear more about the landowners, how they see the situation, and we have heard a lot of these stories already during these two days. However, I think, I'm a lawyer by myself, that the regulation and policy making should be more interactive than it is at the moment. CRCF is actually quite good example of interactive process. I applaud the approach and the activity in CRCF. It has been, in my opinion, exceptional legal and regulatory framework so far, but it doesn't stop here. We have to develop the framework further and try to guarantee the credibility of the market also in the future. And we have already heard today about the nature credits, carbon credit system, and CRCF can, in a way, serve as a framework for also, or example for nature credits, but that's a difficult thing to combine all the scientific data, all the biodiversity issues, and then the legal framework in the future. But CRCF could be a reference point for that market too. Well, just to conclude, to simplify, we need more open and reliable data for commercial use. Science is an important role in this. Research infrastructures are in important role in this. And then again, we find, in a way, in the core of the carbon market is the credible MRV companies, especially companies, private sector, because otherwise we can't scale. We don't have enough projects going on if it's not commercial. I mean, some people may claim that we need public funding. Yes, public funding until the market is working, but market should work with private investments and private money. And again, it's the bridge. The MRV and the services around the MRV is the bridge from the science to market. And as I mentioned, policymaking should be interactive process, scalable and profitable market structure should be there. It's critical that the landowners get money from the action, and MRV systems can guarantee that the market is reliable and foreseeable also in difficult times. That's basically our input at this point. Let's continue the discussion, and there was some other keynote also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tuukka and Sami. We won't take questions now, but there will be a time during the panel. So let me introduce the next keynote speaker, Marie-Christine Deluc. She works at Airbus and geospatial solutions for businesses. And yeah, hopefully her slides will go up soon.
Thanks, Nea. So let me present one of our latest innovations with remote sensing for carbon farming. That's the automatic hedgerows detection. I'm trying to... Okay. Okay. Not too far. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so hedgerows detection upon satellite imagery, very high resolution satellite imagery at 30 centimeter resolution. So, as Nea mentioned, I'm working in the geospatial part of Airbus. We provide satellite imagery. We have constellations of optical and radar satellites. We provide satellite imagery, but also analytics and solutions. So we use for nature-based use cases, we use a lot Sentinel data. We valorize it through biophysical metrics and also with AI to define a high definition 5-meter data. And we use also our satellite, commercial satellites, 30 centimeter. They are not only used for defense and mapping, but also in agri and environment. They give these satellites, 30 centimeter, give a closer look to agroecological infrastructures, to the boundaries of fields and the practices. So just to present rapidly what we are doing, we have 3 pillar solutions. One for precision ag, FarmStar, 25 years old service. Starling is a monitoring, 10 years old deforestation monitoring. And Grassland Production Index is for insurance. And aside these pillars, we develop analytics from satellite imagery, such as tree detection, automatic field delineation, tree health indicators, crop health indicators, and biomass estimates for crops or for forest. Okay, so what is at stage for hedgerows? Hedgerows, as you all know, are really very important ecosystem with high environmental values on several functions, ecological functions, biological, hydrological, climatic, and soil. So the question is really how to valorize hedgerows in agricultural carbon credits, or in regen ag, or biodiversity programs. And to do so, then there's a need to demonstrate the service rendered by these hedgerows, and this starts with a reliable detection of hedgerows, automatic detection at scale. So here you can see a Pleianeo 30 centimeter, how hedgerows appear on that kind of imagery. So very high resolution satellite imagery allowed to have an independent vision of hedgerows. It allows to cover very vast territories, and also when you associate it with AI process, then you can have an automatic detection, reliable detection. The objective, of course, is to reduce field work and also to be able to provide an appropriate revisit at scale, meaning every year or every 2 years. It depends on the territory you are considering. It's worth to mention also that with this kind of satellite imagery, you can also detect other features like small walls, swamps, or field boundaries, or buffer strips. One of the technological challenges that we had for hedgerows detection was really the diversity of hedgerows on the ground, but as you can see here, but also from the sky on the satellites. So diversity of hedgerows, but also diversity of definitions of hedgerows. Some definitions describe hedgerows on the length, other ones on the height, other ones on the width, or in the discontinuity with different values. And so what we have selected to adapt our model is a CAP definition. So our objective was really to get a reliable detection of linear units of vegetation with a discontinuity less than 5 meters and a width less than 20 meters. And so we have adapted a foundation model that we had. I forgot to mention that this project has been achieved, this work has been achieved in the context of CAFAMOR project with Airbus R&D. So we have foundation model, existing ones, and we have adapted one of them to hedgerows detection by labelization of 150 sub-images in 3 countries in Europe. We were using only RGB bands of satellites, and we have been doing an extensive validation process with more than 5,300 samples of edges and non-edges coming from, in order to have an assessment of robustness of the model across Europe. So we have taken these sites over 18 countries in Europe to assess the stability of the foundation model against a wide diversity of agricultural context, regions, seasons, and also across different satellite viewing angles. And so we have obtained well, these are the sites for selection. We have obtained an overall accuracy of 87%, confirmed between 84 and 91% across all contexts, meaning per climate zone, per season, per viewing angle, etc. So we consider that the foundation model is now stable, ready to be applied at large scale. Of course, it can be still improved. We have identified axes of improvement, of course, by adding labels or adding a near-infrared band as well, or using our dehazed standard processing. And if we want to improve the limitation of the edges themselves, then we know that we can favor images from spring, summer, and autumn, and images with a low viewing angle. So these are some examples of hedgerows automatic detection on the fields. So thank you for your attention. Ready to answer to your questions.
Thank you so much, Marie. I would like to invite our panelists up here now, and I'll take a moment to introduce them as far as the slides back up. No, there should be enough seats, I think. Yeah? No? Or maybe just... Tuka, you can probably... yeah, or I could just give you... Sorry. Yeah, as you can see, we have a pretty full panel. The reason being that it's a hot topic and everyone we asked to be on the panel said, yes, they want to be here. So there we go. You've already been introduced to Sami, Marie, and Tuka, so I'll take the chance to introduce the others. We have Saheba Bhatnagar from B0. She's a remote sensing specialist, and B0 is a global carbon ratings agency. We have Lauri Yilila, who is the development manager at Manvilia. Right? Okay. He works with farmers and forest owners, helping them implement carbon sequestration projects. We have Laurette Laurent, who's a carbon farming consultant at Vivesia. You might have seen her presentations already earlier in this conference. We have Mirko Miljavaka. If you don't know him, he is the scientific officer at the European Commission JRC, very much into the data and mapping processes with Earth observation data. And then last but not least, we have Joanne Nightingale, who's a principal scientist at the National Physical Laboratory, working very much on TLS scanning and uncertainty estimation in robust ways. Okay, so the panel is full, and since it is the end of the day and I don't want to sit here and do all the listening and talking, we're going to do it like this. We'll go through one round of questions, which will be posed by me, and then we'll see what they have to say. But for the second round of questions, I do have a backup set, but I would like to actually open the floor then to the audience. So feel free to have a think about what you would like to ask them while we go through the first round of questions. Please don't be shy, and let's break that fourth wall so that we can actually make this a discussion. All right? Okay, so let me take the seat for this because my notes are here. So my first question is actually for Sami or Tuka. We heard at the keynote presentation at the opening of the Carbon Farming Summit that the technology is ready, the science is ready, and the gap has never really been knowledge. What is your take on this statement, and do you think that science-based, data-driven MRV tools are ready to deliver the needs of carbon markets?
Yes, we have the bits and pieces ready, but we don't have the collection of them working properly yet, but we are getting there. I could use the analogy of telecommunications 30 years ago. We had these standards of, let's say, at that time 2G or 2G actually at that time. We didn't know that in 30 years we will watch HD movies from our mobiles. So we are in the early stage of, let's say, environment-related business development to be started. So that's how I see it. MRV, of course, is the, let's say, guarantor of the credibility of the market, as I mentioned already before. And science is the backbone of that, creating and offering the data. And of course, it's interactive. Also, the business is interactive. More and more projects we get going, more accurate and correct data we will have. So bits and pieces available, technology is available, but implementation is still on the way.
Okay. And Mirko, the next question is for you, riding on that same way with EO technology. How and where do you see Earth observations supporting CRCF and carbon farming methodologies? Where is innovation most needed as we stand today?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, because I lost the voice in the last 2 coffee breaks, I think.
Understandable.
Yeah, so CRCF actually pose a very strong emphasis on the use of Earth observation, and I think in that aspect is pretty innovative, but also on the use of proximal sensing to create data for the MRV. One aspect that I want to also to emphasize, also where the gap are, and it's that it's not only a matter of monitoring certain aspects, like for instance stock changes or biomass, which is of course important, and it's one key element. But there are some other aspects that are required by CRCF. For example, being able to monitor exactly the activities that are happening in the different fields. Or having a length cover, the capability to monitor length cover a bit beyond what we are doing now. So including also species or type of crops in more detail. So this is actually things that are very important. There is one aspect that we mentioned, we touched before in the plenary lecture, which is the liability. And for that, products that are able to track risk, disturbances, but also attribute the disturbance to different drivers. These are actually very important to run the models in the frameworks that we've seen before. And then last but not least, there is a set of co-benefits that is defined in the legislation, one of which is biodiversity. And there I think so we're still a bit behind as a community to really monitor biodiversity from, for example, for space, but also from proximal sensing. I come actually more from that kind of experience. And those are the kind of products that need to be developed. One important aspect also that I want to touch very briefly is that so we need higher resolution. This is a challenge. We need temporal consistency. This is another big challenge. And then I think we need an uncertainty level that is acceptable for the markets. And those are 3 points that are really fundamental. And I think at the moment some of these aspects can be addressed with proximal sensing, some of the aspects with drones or with the airborne, and some of the aspects with Earth observation. But we really need to try to bridge the gap between the 3 different methods, including the ground truth and ground data, to being able to monitor at high resolution, but also consistently in time in a way that we can have products that can serve the legislation. Yeah, so that's my first talk. Yeah.
Thank you, Mirko. Very comprehensive and lots of points for discussion for later. I want to move now to Lauri. Since you're here representing the forest owners, the landowners, for those people managing forest lands and field areas, how detailed and specific are MRV processes to them? And how do they evaluate different MRV service providers? How do they choose and how do they understand this market?
Now it's on. Okay. So I think it's really hard to compare those operators at the moment. We are making cooperation with the CAF at the moment, but of course there's other companies also in the system. But I think at the end, the landowner wants to found the best system for his fields or forest areas. Of course, we are working with our 3,000 owners who are owning the company, and of course we are trying to find a lot of those lands where we can do those measures, and that's how get the prices down also.
You have the best stop chairs.
Well, I hope so.
I actually wanted to ask Tuka if you have also a take on this. How do you communicate your services to forest owners and landowners, and what are the barriers you face when you're using Earth observation data?
Running out of cable. I think that the challenge, I mean, one of the challenges really is for a MRV producer or actor is to manage the number of connections you need to make, because to serve thousands of customers owning, for example, a piece of land, it's very difficult to handle. So for example, what we do together with Maanvaalia is that they negotiate and discuss with the landowners so that we can concentrate on the MRV, and they manage the agreements with the farmers, for example, because it's a lot of work. So I think the key thing in the whole chain of using MRVs for carbon market is that you need to have clear roles for different players and work together, and there's a lot of work for all of us, but I think that's a good way of scaling up the work, that there is clear roles for different companies to work in this field.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to Saheba now. From the perspective of a rating agency, in this case specifically B0, how important is transparency in Earth observation-based MRV systems to build trust in carbon markets? And are we there yet?
Thanks, Neha. I hope you guys can hear me. And thank you also for the introduction and leading us here so far. And thanks everyone who are here. So I guess I can start first by introducing carbon ratings agencies, because I feel like not many people know about us. So we are B0 Carbon. We are based in London. And so our main, our aim is to assess the likelihood that a carbon credit will actually deliver the benefit, the climatic benefit it claims. So this means that we basically look at the entire carbon accounting system, which means that looking at how baselines are constructed, permanence is calculated, leakage, additionality, everything. We don't only look at nature-based solutions projects, but also non-NBS. But specifically here, if we talk about NBS projects, Earth observation is extremely important, obviously. I mean, there were amazing points raised by Marco as well, and great points on MRV by everyone here. So having Earth observation makes it, one thing which we kind of keep on forgetting, for the end user, Earth observation and the satellite data, for example, missions from ESA are quite cost effective. So you get a lot of data essentially for free, which is amazing. So you can have spatially coherent data set, so you can have an evidence of what's happening on the ground straight away. Then B, you also have temporal consistency, which means that you can distinguish between what project is doing versus the broader regional trend. So that's also a key part we need to remember. However, I should add that EO is, Earth observation, is just one part of credible MRV. And the other thing which can build trust is the transparency in how these observations are then used for estimating carbon, and how different uncertainty related to the data products that we are using are communicated. So this is something super important, and we shouldn't forget about that. And yeah, at B0 we have our own analytical framework where we use, where we assess these different uncertainties across different methodologies and project types. So I'll end by saying transparency, it's like a very broad term, but it's a shared responsibility. So at one point, I think like data providers have to be very clear about documenting how the products are derived and how the uncertainties are derived as well. And on the other hand, MRV providers and project developers have to be very clear about yeah, how are they using these uncertainties in their own analysis. And yeah, I think we shouldn't shy away from it. And yeah, we should be open about it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Saheba. That was a great answer. Okay, I'm going to move to Marie-Christine. Actually, I had the same question of uncertainties, of transparency to you. But I also wanted to pick up on what Saheba said in terms of multi-temporal open source Earth observation data available. Everyone talks about the Sentinels, for example, the availability of that open source data, but how does innovation in the use of your very high resolution imagery at Airbus come in, and how does that enter into operational business models?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, well, we use a lot of Sentinel data, but also we use our commercial data sets to complement the time series, for example, for crop monitoring, crop biomass estimation. But you have always some use cases that ask to go for details, enhanced details, which are not seen on 10-meter imagery, or use cases which require a revisit, which is better than the aerial imagery, which is generally 3 or 4 years revisit. And this is why we put satellite high resolution, very high resolution imagery in it. The point is that they are commercial satellites. Generally, we offer them through subscription to the private sector. And also, what I want to mention is that for institutional use cases in many countries, or even at European level with ESA or GRC, we have a upstream data buy, central data buy, which allows to go for volumes. And through these programs, centralized upstream data buy, you have the capacity to give to registered end users access freely to these commercial data sets. So that's one way. Today, we do that for imagery, data sets of imagery, and we could add these analytics on top. What we have in Airbus is, for example, a pack of analytics for mapping, like in a mapping pack, you have roads and buildings, or an intelligence defense pack, we have cars, planes, and boats. We could imagine a carbon farming pack with hedgerows, tree detection, field boundaries, and these packs could be on top of imagery through the central data sets procurement as well.
Thank you, and lots of ideas for me too there. Thank you. Maybe I'll just follow up straight away with my next question straight to you again. How do you plan EO innovation at Airbus, and what's next in the box for innovation?
Okay. Well, today how we do R&D is really with our customers and partners. We want them to express their challenges so that our innovation is, let's say, meeting value proposition on the market afterwards. What currently, for example, key topic for them today is forest AGB, above ground biomass. So it's tricky because if you need to go on the field, or if you use LiDAR data to assess biomass, it's very accurate, but it's costly, it's time-consuming. Sometimes our customers and partners cannot go to the fields. And so we have developed from satellite imagery, 30 centimeter Playa Neo, monoscopic imagery, a capacity with foundation model to assess the height of the trees. We are still in R&D, but it's more the D part of it, and it's not industrialized yet, but the results are quite good. We also work on tree crown diameter for biomass estimate, above ground biomass, and we plan to work on the identification of species, which is tricky, really tricky, but we have planned to work on that afterwards.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for all those thoughts. I'll move now to Laurette. From your experience at Vivesia, can you tell us how Earth observation can be used concretely on the ground in regenerative or low agriculture programs or low carbon agriculture programs? And what real benefits does Earth observation bring to these programs?
Hello everyone, so as you said, I work at Vivesia, so we run a RegionAg program with about 600 farmers, and we challenge them on result-based indicators. One of them is the soil cover duration, so for this one we use remote sensing data. We can calculate the average days that the soil is covered at farm level, and then we compare the farmers to a benchmark in their local area. So this is very interesting because it helps farmers to be compared to their very local context-specific pedoclimatic conditions. So it really reflects the reality. We think it's very important to have harmonized indicators across different programs because we see that there is multiple RegionAg program and carbon farming programs that are emerging, and it's often complicated to really compare the indicators. So with remote sensing, we can access a robust and harmonized way to calculate indicators and also be context-specific, which is always important in agriculture. So this is how we use it for the moment, because as we just said, it's still the beginning. We still have some challenges, especially concerning the minimum area detectable. So for sure you can use a private database, but actually at the moment the cost that it's had to like the benefit we can derive from this level of precision cannot be borne by the markets. The cost is too high, but we hope that in the next years we can reduce this cost and access more robust and monitoring indicators that can help to compare different programs and can be relevant also for farmers. Because when we talk about RegionAg, sometimes we talk about carbon emission or carbon sequestration, which for farmers means not very much. But when you compare them to their peers, to the farmers next to them on indicators such as soil cover duration, then it speaks to them and they know how they can act to really improve their practices. So I think it's also very relevant in RegionAg program to have this kind of indicators that speaks to farmers. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Detailed answer. I'm going to jump to Joe. So Joanne Nightingale's at the National Physical Laboratory. You are deep in the science and you deal with uncertainties and you deal with the latest models and you're right there. So I want to jump a little bit, let's say, into the CRCF or high-risk problematic ecosystems that we need to address with EO innovation. One, for example, is peatlands. Peatlands are relevant to the CRCF. We struggle to monitor them. Is Earth observation there yet? What more needs to be done? Where is innovation most needed? Give us your take.
Thanks, Neha. Innovations in peatlands. Well, I think, first of all, a robust and successful peatland restoration monitoring approach really requires a combination of all levels of data, from ground, airborne, satellite, commercial and open source data streams. if you're looking at peatlands, and specifically in the context of the carbon markets, depending on the severity of the degradation, peatland restoration to a near natural state is going to take in the order of decades and even centuries, and it's going to require multiple interventions and different types of interventions, such as ditch and gully blocking and bunding and reprofiling, re-wetting, revegetating, etc. And when we're talking about restoration in this context, you want to be able to track interventions that happen, so you can actually show you've done it, so you can be paid for your nature-based solution. And you want to do that at the scale that you can actually see it and monitor the incremental change, but also you want to see it across the landscape. And I think in terms of the public sector satellites, we have the free and open source ones. They're doing a very good job at the landscape scale, but they sort of don't have the fidelity that you'd need to do that very detailed incremental monitoring. So I think there's a huge gap in terms of access to the commercial side of things and the costs associated with implementing commercial satellites. I think in terms of one of the most important peatland health indicators, looking at water table depth and bog breathing, the only real way to monitor that is with synthetic aperture radar, and actually a lot of the commercial satellites are used to do that already. In terms of optical data, you're looking for sub 10 meter resolution data, for example, from Airbus. And that's going to give you a lot better granularity on what's going on in terms of, can you identify where the interventions have happened? Can you look at the gullies? Can you look at how much bare peat there is? You can even look at revegetation success more quickly, and even vegetation type discrimination, maybe not species yet. And then finally, I think another area in terms of the gap is really the airborne LiDAR scanning capabilities from drones or planes, which is a really powerful tool for monitoring and planning interventions, because you can get really high resolution information on drainage ditches and then where the water is flowing, so you can actually use that information to plan where you're going to put your intervention. So there's lots of things to monitor, but it requires combination of all different types of data sets coming together.
Okay, but before I move to the audience, actually I want to quickly ask you again, Joe. Yeah. So if you had all the data that you need, let's say Airbus, you've got an ALS scan, you've got your TLS, do you think we have the methodological frameworks to get to what carbon farming needs to quantify or estimate? And do we have the framework for uncertainty?
I believe we have the frameworks. We just need the data and the willingness to put it forward. In terms of the uncertainty, I mean, that's pretty much MPL's bread and butter. That's, sorry, let me get my notes back. So that's exactly what we're working on at MPL, which is the UK's National Measurement Institute. And you might wonder, what on earth is a measurement institute doing in carbon markets? Well, part of my job is really trying to get to meaningful estimates of carbon across the landscape. And there's 3 points I want to make with regards to uncertainty, and we've heard it in the presentations earlier, and from Mikko as well. Everyone's saying uncertainty, but what does that actually mean? So there's 3 points I want to make. The first one, an estimate of uncertainty should be provided on every single data set and measurement that you use, period. And if it's not, you as a user of that data set should be questioning why not. It's up to you guys to ask. And the reason for that is that uncertainty is going to give you it's going to give you an estimate of the reliability of the information that you're using and an understanding of the range within which that true value is likely to fall. And without an uncertainty on your data, the data is meaningless. Simple as that. Uncertainties need to be provided in a common way. Okay, so if we're talking about, my background is vegetation monitoring, above ground biomass, for example. if I'm measuring above ground biomass and using my satellites and models and my ground-based data, my satellite, for example, is giving me an estimate of, say, 20 tons of carbon per hectare, plus or minus 10 tons of carbon per hectare. And my ground data, say my terrestrial laser scanner, is giving me 23 tons of carbon per hectare, plus or minus 15 tons of carbon per hectare. I can actually say that the satellite and ground validation data give me comparable estimates within the uncertainty ranges, and I have confidence that the measurements are telling me something useful. Finally, the confidence piece. So there needs to be confidence that the uncertainties stated are realistic and defensible. And I'll give you an example, if you just indulge me for a minute, a little bit of a brain activity to wake us all up. If I said to you, there are 100 people in this auditorium, plus or minus 100 people, I've given you an uncertainty, but that could mean there's 200 people here, or 0 people here, right? That uncertainty is meaningless, right? If I said there's 100 people here, plus or minus 1 person, I've given you an uncertainty, but you'd go, well, you're wrong, because clearly there's, not 101 or there's not 99. If I said there's 100 people here, plus or minus 20 people, would you believe me? Yeah.
Possibly.
So that's a little bit of food for thought of you actually looking at the data in front of you, looking at the information that's provided, talking about the transparency, the traceability, and understanding. And I think if we do that, we will start to get to more meaningful MRV systems. So that's what we're doing as a measurement institute. And if anyone has any questions and like to talk to me about it, happy to have those discussions.
Thank you, Joe. All right, let's give them a round of applause because they made it through the first round. But I'm gonna now ask the audience, your vocal cords are all warmed up, you've been here long enough, you're dying to ask those questions, so here you go.
Thank you. Hello everyone, Pietro Ciusco from Planetic Italia. First of all, I want to comment on the exercise that you just gave us. So basically, my interpretation is the expertise of when I read the data is always important, is always necessary, right? Because if I see there is 1,000 plus or minus of tons per hectares, it's impossible, right? So I have a curiosity question for Marie-Christine, and a second one for Laurette, if I can. Okay. So the first one, any idea of, thanks for giving us the overview of the methodology for identifying edge rows. So an idea of how you can translate this into some sort of indicators for detection of high diversity landscape structures, for example, or any indicators for landscape structure in terms of by just detecting the edge rows. So that's just the identification of where they are, but how do you translate this if you have done any exercise in Airbus? And then the question for Laurette, in terms of you said about benchmarking, so you come out with indicators that show the amount of coverage on soil. How do you set the baseline? How do you do the benchmarking of the fields in the area? Thank you.
Okay, so about the methodology for edge rows detections, so we used a foundation model. It was a foundation model that we used for defense that was retrained for edge rows. And it's a model which is really able to detect small walls, swamps, etc. For the detail, I suggest we will produce a scientific paper before the end of this year. So I suggest if you give me your name, and we can push it to you at this time. It will be issued in autumn. And your second question, I don't know much about this, but yeah, we had reference different obstacles. We are working, for example, for avionic database. We have obstacle definition. We have accuracy level to do that, as well as for defense mapping. Or so it depends on the feature that you are going at. So not a specific answer for me today, but we can discuss with our experts.
So how do we define the benchmark? So we work in France, and in France we have this amazing notion of small region, agricultural region, so that are defined at the national level. It's a region that considers the pedoclimatic condition of the area, and also the type of agriculture that is mostly dominant on the area, and so you have a geographical differentiation at the very local context that say that in this specific area you have the same types of farms that are in the same type of soil and that are mostly doing crops and cows, for example, and livestock. So we use this as the benchmark. So we have this defined area. We measure the average soil cover time, soil cover period, and then we have our field that we know where they are and that we have the position, and so we just compare the average of the whole area to the average of the field of our farms, and then we compare every year.
Okay, thanks. We have another question here.
Thank you. I'm Tobias Horstmann from Secana, the CPO there. First of all, Joanna, great exercise on the importance of uncertainty and also the confidence around that. Definitely very important. And that brings me to a question to Saeba. How do you manage your credit ratings when, in the context of soil organic carbon projects, there are many estimators from biogeochemical models, digital soil maps, design-based estimates, model-assisted estimates, and each of them has different ways to quantify uncertainty, to express that. And then on top of that, there's also a lot of heterogeneity between standards of how reporting has to be done. And a lot of acknowledgement for you doing the due diligence on that, because there's just so little transparency and comparability. How do you manage that?
Thanks for your question. I completely agree. It's very difficult, and I think that's something we all struggle with. There are different methodologies. Every registry comes with their different methodology, and then every project developer or MRV system are doing it very differently sometimes. What we do is we have our own analytical framework, so we have our own methodology, and like I said, our main aim is to basically see that if the project is handing out, let's say, like 1,000 credits, are they actually being delivered, or are they actually doing the benefit they claim out to do? So if they are actually sequestering that amount of carbon that they are claiming, that would happen. And for that, we follow a single methodology that's our in-house. So that way, we don't have to rely on methodologies from different registries, and that's how we can have like a single benchmark. So I guess that's the way we do it, and I also feel, I think it's a good time to sort of like mention that it would be great to have some sort of coherence in methodologies as well. So if regulatory bodies, and I'm sure many people who are doing MRV would agree completely, that the standard bodies could have some clear indication of how to use different products, and also like how Joanne mentioned, that there are so many ways of measuring uncertainty. So I think we need some sort of guideline, some sort of basis to have a clear set of instruction, or some amount of instruction, so that we can have more comparable products going forward. I hope I answered it, but we can discuss it later also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Saeba. I'm looking for more hands from a very engaged audience. There we go.
So I guess this is for whoever wants to answer this question, but I feel one aspect in the M for the MRV is to
look at the farm activity, right, specifically from a farmer's perspective, we've mostly been talking about measuring carbon or using, remote sensing for carbon-related activities, but, having actually been part of a carbon pilot, most of the time farmers don't want to enter data, right? Like that's one of the biggest hurdles. So how do you see remote sensing helping in documenting their farming practices or making that process easier so that the administrative burden of entering data is getting easier as the project moves along? So.
Big subject, how to have reliable farm management. Yeah. So I think I attended the same panel as you, and I asked this question also to the different partners that were presenting their carbon farming project. And what we all agree on is that at the moment we can see if cover crops are there, what type of crops are growing, if there is mechanical intervention. But when we're talking about soil organic carbon and regional program, what really matters is most of the time the fertilization. And this we are still not able to measure it or to monitor it. We still rely on farmers' declaration. So we can ease the process of reporting by saying, okay, we saw that you have a cover crop. We think this is the cover crop that you have. But even this, it's still at the early stages. And as I said, when you have a commercial, like our program is entirely supported by the markets. And for the robustness it adds to our program, using this type of technology is still too costly. So we hope that in the near future, yes, we can have very reliable yield monitoring and but for the real farms management, like what they put in the field, at the moment, I believe nobody knows how to do it yet. So I think it will be the next challenge. I don't know if anyone wants to.
Yeah, I think it's important to think from the perspective of the farmer that what's absolutely the necessary data that you would need for the process, and don't ask anything that is nice to have, just the core things. And actually connecting to what Joanne was saying, you can also do the analysis in a way that if I don't have this data, how bigger error margin I will have, or error estimate, and kind of optimizing this in a way that it's good enough for practical purposes. And on the left side of the dot. So if there is something on the right side of the dot, it's nice to have that science. But for an MRV process to be effective, we need to first get the left side of the dot correct, and with uncertainty. So this is what we also do.
Okay, thanks. I might actually have a quick follow-up question, also speaking from the perspective of the farmers. So for Laurie maybe, or for someone from Climate Analytics Finland, what is the current cost-benefit trade-off when you're talking about carbon credits versus the amount it costs to go through an MRV process, get satellite imagery, analyze it, get a consultant to do all that for you? Are carbon markets enough to offer that incentive at the moment?
Yeah, we have been selling few of those credits what we have been produced. So at the moment we have got quite good price, I would say. But if you are like example, the cover crop, the farmer has to put how about that would be. A little bit under 100 euros per hectare, maybe is the cost. So are you getting, though, is the farmer getting that 100 euros from that credit? I think not at the moment. So that's a little dilemma at this point.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? Yes.
Maybe one add on to that one. I mean, our approach in Climate Analytics Finland has been that we should get the error margin or uncertainty level down to, let's say, 10% before the market operates well. We are not there yet in all the methodologies. We are quite there actually with the forestry methodologies. And also what we need from the MRV, we have heard how expensive it is, but our approach with our cooperation program has been that we need 10% at the moment, and we hope of the credit, roughly. If we play with credit prices like from 80 to 100 euros. And if you compare it to something, this is also important to get it right in a way that, is it expensive or not if you produce, for instance, biofuel, which is roughly 350 per ton. If you pay 100 euros of carbon removals, plus some buffer or insurance or whatever rate there will be. But our point is that 10% of uncertainty and 10% to the MRV, and we should really kick off. And finally, we hope that it will be below 5% the MRV costs. Once we get more data, once we get more experience, once we get more developed methodologies.
Well, sounding very optimistic, but thanks. Matteo.
Thank you. So in the last days, I've heard a lot of talk about hybrid MRV. That means including soil measurements or direct field measurements with satellite, with models. Is that fully explored? Are there still gaps in the integration of field measurement that goes beyond just, validating your Earth observation or, adjusting, rescaling what you get from satellite? Do you still see gaps in that?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, so from my perspective, one current gap, in particular if you want to use ground data at very large scale, no? So to have to use some mapping capability from satellite at a large scale is the size of the plot, for example. So how the data are sampled in the ground compared to the satellite resolution and also the geolocation errors. So this kind of aspects, for example, are at the moment for some application, creating uncertainty. And this is also comes from the fact that, for example, we have a lot of ground data set that were in programs that were developed not to do ground truth or to be training of satellite observation. In particular now that we also have machine and deep learning that can use all this huge amount of data, but they were created for different type of products, for national inventories, for, acid rains like the ICP. So those are plots that are optimized for certain type of questions and not for from the ground to serve in principle the Earth observation training and or the products based on Earth observation. I know there are a couple of, for example, European projects that are trying in forestry to explore this optimal size. They have some. I think now hundreds probably of they call super sites to try to measure this or to test this kind of approaches. On the other hand, when I see the CRCF where actually measurements are supposed to be at property level, and if you think about in the next years where these data are coming through the declaration and so on, maybe this is something that can help also to relieve this. And I hope that this is one of the aspects that can be used for to improve the use of ground data. Yeah.
Maybe I'll just take a quick follow-up question with you, Mirko, again. From where we see it at ESA, and I guess also at JRC, there's an echo, sorry. There's a lot of Earth observation data out there. We're almost flooded with data, with time series. We're getting AI to make super resolution imagery. It's getting better and better. In terms of missing in situ data, or specifically in Europe, which ecosystems or which regions are we most in need for in situ data to calibrate the Earth observation better? Mirko or...
No, but I think, Joanna, you can help me because you touched some points on peatlands. I'm not expert on peatlands, but I think, for example, that is one aspect that I know there is, at least there are not coherent networks. So this is probably one. So for specifically for the CRCF, for example, there are also quite a lot of networks that can also provide very good data, not only for certain aspects of mapping, but also modeling, like the ICOS and the ELTER that were shown before. But for example, also there, so those are very nice because you can have also direct measurements of fluxes, and you can try directly to predict fluxes in, instead of just properties, then to run models. But also there, for example, those are networks that were grew in the past to answer some questions on, for instance, climate effect on vegetation, but is missing a bit this aspect on the management and having these clustered sites where we have the same climatic conditions and different management. And so those are, for instance, some of the ground data that are missing. And then I personally work quite a bit on biodiversity. And for example, this is also one aspect. So we're really struggling to find data on tree species in a way that can be used for mapping. So actually there the high resolution, I know it could be a very good point, or let's say very good approaches, but those are the three domains where I think can be, things can be improved there.
Excellent, thanks. Jody, you want to add to that?
I can add very briefly that I also think it depends on what you're trying to measure. So I think, in terms of the carbon flux towers, that's well represented. Above ground biomass is really not well represented. So it really depends on the measurement and then what you're trying to stratify. And so I think, a deep dive into this might be worthwhile doing.
Yeah, I feel like we need to put out a call for acquisition of data sets that meet specifically the policy needs here, and then we know which data we're looking for. One moment, I did see a hand here previously. Oh, there we go, okay. Then I'll...
Thank you. Nathalie Morin from Geoville. Back to the hedgerows, and so question to Marie-Christine. Very innovative, inspiring work on the hedgerow and the small landscape feature. Also, if you can also detect the walls, maybe ditches or grass field margins, small ponds, also for the mandatory co-benefits of the CRCF, biodiversity and so on. I have a question on the scalability of this solution, which I understand applies very well for carbon farming, local scale, plot level, but what about the scalability, pan-European, especially in terms of cost, spatial and temporal coverage and consistency, when we know this relies on VHR commercial satellite, except for special agreement with the European institution, but also in terms of spatial temporal coverage, as we know, even for now, the EA Copernicus Land Monitoring Service, a small woody feature, small landscape feature, relies on a very high resolution, but it takes years to get this VHR mosaic, plus or minus 1 year. So in terms of time consistency, and as you know, it's a very limited scene, also at 30 centimeter with the Neopleiad. So how is the solution scalable, pan-European? Thank you.
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So capability of scaling up depends on cost and also on satellite resource. Today, frankly speaking, there is a kind of alignment of planets because you have more and more satellites. So today, for example, in terms of capacity of coverage, we have very huge coverage at 30 centimeter. And tomorrow, tomorrow in the next few years, we will have even more. Today, for example, we can cover France, half of France every year. So in 2 years' time, you have an update at 30 centimeter, for example. That's just an example. We analyze this country by country. There are lots of archive data as well, which is available. In terms of cost, we are quite open to discuss business models. Today, our traditional costing is per square kilometer. And so I was speaking about analytics upon satellite data. So one square kilometer of Pleianeo 30 centimeter, when we task the satellite to acquire at a given period, it's 26 euro. If you have volume, then we have discount levels. And the analytics, if we look at mapping analytics or intelligence analytics, 3 euro per analytics, so it means 29 euro per square kilometer. If you have in this 29 euro per square kilometer 1,000 meter of edge rows, which means 10 fields, 100 meter edge rows per field, which is not that much in this, so it's less than 3 cents per meter. We just, I can see you smiling, but just to say, you were speaking about size of fields. For us, it's more a question of aggregating requests, demands to be able to have good discounts. For precision ag services, for example, we deal with central procurement agencies for cooperatives so that they get good volumes and good prices for that. So we are really happy to discuss business models on that.
I would quickly pick up the question which I think Matteo asked and which Mirko answered, because I felt that there was a bit of a confusion there. So I felt like you said that there's the models that are currently calibrated and validated on data are more like national level, and they are publicly available. That's true. But there are actually very bespoke cases for project developers that have a specific project, and every methodology actually requires sampling. Also, if you do a digital soil map afterwards, or if you use a biogeochemical model, you always have to sample. And the purpose of that sample then really depends on how you quantify change. If you use a digital soil map, the purpose of sampling is to validate that model, and that's prescribed by methodologies. There's a clear rulebook for that. If the purpose of sampling is to quantify the change directly from the sample, it's a very different use case. And we recently wrote a sampling handbook for Vera, which is out for public consultation, which clearly defines the different use cases and how you should sample, that the samples really meet the use case that you actually have in your place. And so that clearly describes how to manage this different, how to navigate sample data and how you can use that for calibration or validation, what exactly you need, because we have that already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's out there already in public knowledge.
No, actually, I completely agree. So one example that I was coming in mind was, for example, the National Forest Inventories. No? You need to go precisely in the same location to measure every 5 to 10 years and to map stock changes. So at the moment that they were not designed to serve, for example, as a validation or training for Sentinel or even Landsat at the time when they developed products. And there was this 30 meters plots, very precisely located in time, because the question was, we want to measure the changes, and not we want to create the ground truth to create a map. So in that sense, So far we always work in the direction of try to use the ground data available to, let's say, regardless the question that drove their sampling protocol, a bit in a utilitaristic way to create maps and to create products. But if we think like, if we look from the mapping side, is exactly as you said. So for the mapping side, you need to try to map as much as possible, so in a way that you are representative of your basically pixel or the satellite product that you want to use, and also in some cases maybe the sensor. And so this is one, and you have to design the protocol in that way. While if you want to use it, for example, to train a model, like a process model, to look at stock changes where the uncertainty is really in time and not too much in space, then you need to have, for example, maybe less sample in space, but very, very, very well co-located in time, and so in the same point, but in time. So I think it's a bit of question of where you want to use. So from the let's say large-scale perspective, I think the accommodation of the size of the plot with the satellite is important, but again, the purpose is really fundamental. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mirko. I think we're reaching the end of this session, so I want to take a step back, unless there are any other burning questions or responses. Oh, there is one. Okay, sorry. No step back yet.
Maybe just this one, maybe I don't address it for anyone in particular, but it's general thoughts about metadata. So we are looking into the models, we discuss about uncertainty, but my question is, when you are, this community, your spatial community is looking into the stack metadata exchange, other communities are working in another metadata model. So have you ever tried to cross-check this metadata? Because the insurance community is working with another models. The energy sector is also maybe working with another model. So have you also experienced these metadata exchanges?
Thanks, Monica. I feel like you asked a very relevant question, but I feel like there is no answer. There is no answer to it. I think, yeah. So again, there is no one method, no one model. Yeah, so no exchange of metadata. So I'm afraid, yeah, I don't think we are there yet, but I hope to move in that direction. Yeah.
Monica, remind me to not give you the microphone in the last few minutes of the session. Tough question to ask. Okay, I do want to take that one step back, and this is an open question to anyone on the panel and anyone in the audience. The title here was Innovations in Earth Observation. We sort of know what needs to be done next. We are, funding research to go in the right direction. But if I could hear a few voices on if you had a wish list on what the next innovation should be, and where should Earth observation go, if you could tell me in one sentence, we'll take that as a take-home message. And if you say nothing, then we're there.
Yeah, I think for a lot of MRV purposes, at least in agriculture, soil texture is quite critical, and clay content specifically. And the accuracy of that is not great yet, what we have with the remote sensing. So whatever you can do to make that better, that would be awesome.
Okay. We'll work on it. Any other comments? Oh, sorry. Yep. Monica.
No, just a wish that also has been discussed this morning. And we call for networks, for ground networks, not only ICAS, but also some ground networks regarding the other information which is needed for MRV, especially practices and biomass and whatever.
Stronger ground networks to help. Go ahead.
Maybe one thing
if you know what you are doing, data only gets better when you use it. So we have to use data, a lot of data. We have to do more projects, more programs, whatever it is, in every nation, every methodology. More data we get, the better it gets.
Just to add something, maybe one topic we believe is can be key also for scale up as well is AI. We've seen that with foundation model, it's really more feasible to adapt to another context with few labeling, labelization, and then I think the scale up will be easier, not taking months. Calibration, but also checking of the accuracy of the models can be improved with AI, not speaking about VLM to facilitate the access to the data. So I think we are starting working on that, and I believe that's a key axis to facilitate in the future.
I think my wish list and what we're working on as well at MPL is being able to harmonize all of the Earth observation data sets out there from all the different space agencies and commercial players. So the Sentinels, the USGS Landsats, the planets of the world, all onto a common platform so we can use them interchangeably. And then we'd really have a great wealth of data at our fingertips. No, it is completely public.
Maybe if I continue for the wish list, I think it's what we addressed before, to facilitate the monitoring process, because there is no carbon farming project without farmers, and I think we really need also to address like what we can do to make their the life of their project easier, and how we can also, for example, have already the information and they just have to verify it. So I think remote sensing can really help on that for the monitoring.
I have two things. First is the using the data from Earth observations, but also with in situ data and the models all together, and cross-compare and keep the information on the uncertainties in all of those involved. And then the second point is that we need to also look at the carbon market and the top-down and bottom-up. So scaling up MRVs from plot size to larger areas and nations, and then see what's the and compare that with the analysis of inventories, nationwide activities. So if we meet somewhere in the middle, you know, are those two approaches giving the same result or not?
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is not going to end.
No, just sorry, just because it's the wish list, but I think it's a point that we didn't touch too much. I mean, you made it before quickly, but I think also there is this aspect of the open data that is very important. And when you talk about transparency, I think we didn't talk today, but this the algorithmic transparency, so the possibility to have, I mean, I know there are also quite a lot of private sector, but also the possibility to run transparently the full workflow and get the results out and being able to know exactly the limitation, but from the code, point of view of the code. So that's actually something that will help quite a lot in giving credibility also to the whole system, because everyone can reproduce at least the estimates in some of the test cases. Yeah.
In fact, I think in the CRCF that's already a big topic, and the data sharing, openness, and platforms with thematic hubs where codes and data could be exchanged easier across European actors. All right, folks, we've kept you here long enough, so round of applause. Thank you for the engaging discussion, and thank you very much to our panelists. You have their faces and names here, so if you need to reach out to them, please just Google them and keep the discussions going. Have a good evening.